February morning. Super Bowl Sunday. Are the Packers in the Super Bowl this year?
Yeah, whatever.
No.
Even with the Vikings.
As it is Super Bowl, our tradition is that we collect cans of soup to give to Project Concern. And if you're sitting here going, oh, I forgot my soup, never fear. We also have soup for lunch downstairs, and you can throw a little bit of cash in the plate, and we'll go out and buy the soup and bring it there. So you're covered. At any rate, come down and have some soup for lunch, because it looks really great. There's, 7 or 8 different kinds of soup, so you'll find something that you like. Doug's got a...
If some of you don't already know, for the past 6 years I've been working for Project Concern, and probably for the last 7 to 8 years I've been a representative for St. Mark's on the board. So I haven't spoken to the church for a long time, so I thought I'd bring this up. We have several announcements going on. The first thing I want to do is thank the people at St. Mark's for all of the diapers and baby items. It's absolutely incredible how fast we go through those things. Joe called me up the other day and said, what do you need? And I said 4 and 5 diapers. So we have 4 and 5 diapers. So thank you so much, I really appreciate that. Another activity, there's a flyer in the back. It's the bowling on March 15th. That's a Saturday at South Shore Bowl. It's $30 a person. If you want to get a team together, I think it sells out pretty quick. So if you want to get a team together, get a hold of Dan at the South Shore Bowling here on Carpenter or Cudahy. On March 9th, with the help of our master gardener, which is Jim, and with the help of Joe, we decided this year for the garden to try to be a little more efficient, try to grow vegetables we'll get a higher yield out of, and one of the ideas was to have our Sunday school kids help us plant seeds and get the initial starts to grow. So on March 9th, during Sunday school, we're going to get together with the children, and hopefully they'll take home what they planted and they'll grow and be beautiful starters for the garden out there. We invite the adults too. If you want to come and help us, that would be great. So that's the week after the Fat Tuesday celebration. A couple of other things. The benefit for Project Concern, the musical benefit, is usually the first weekend of June. We're discussing now whether to have it the first or the second. That's not really relevant right now, but if you have a special talent musically and you want to participate, please let me know. You have like 3 or 4 months if you want to put something together, an etude, or if you have a trio or a musical instrument you want to play. Now's the time to get started rehearsing. If you're interested, get a hold of me and I'll put it on there. The other thing too is that I'm looking for somebody to take over the benefit for next year. So if you want to volunteer, I can show you the ropes. It's not very hard. It does take a little bit of time, but it's not a really hard thing to do. And one of the other reasons that I want to do that is I started being the race director for what's called the Hunger Rumble. And that's going to be an annual event. We had over 60 participants last year. We kind of broke even on the dollars, but we're going to do it again this year. And that'll be on June 21st. Start time will be 9 o'clock in the morning, so it'll give everybody an extra hour to wake up and give us extra time to go ahead and get this together. All of the comments last year that I heard on the run were very positive. We start in Sheridan Park, go up Pulaski, you take the sidewalk all the way to Lunham from Pulaski, and you end up back in the park again. We had wonderful treats afterwards, and it was a lot of fun, very successful thing. So that's kind of a community event. We hope you guys will get ready. If you'd rather walk, that's fine. Strollers are welcome. Kids under, we say 10 or free if they have a parent to come with them. Pets are allowed. I don't have any problems with that either. That's all I really had to say, but that was quite a bit. So,
Thanks, Doug. Come on up. The Hunger Rumble last year, I thought I might win, so I got there early. I was all ready, had my running shoes on. Realized I forgot a belt. So I just walked instead of ran, but, you know, hey.
Good morning. Two announcements. First, it is Pajama Day, if you're wondering, and I think it's a historic day, as I'm guessing it's the first St. Mark's Pajama Day. So you're witnessing history today. And our youth will be part of the service at another Youth Sunday as well. And second, for any families of St. Mark's who have youth between ages of kindergarten through high school, my parents have started a scholarship fund for Lutherdale Camp. So anybody who's interested within the church family in attending Lutherdale Camp, my kids have gone the last several years with my parents, so you can bring grandkids, it's really cool. They love it, my parents love it. And then also, I've always loved going to camp as a kid, and so anyone here who will not want to go, we want to help support that. So see me if you have any questions about that. All right.
Yay. Yay, Lutherdale. My daughter Grace is the director of Lutherdale. Did you know that?
I did.
You didn't know that, all right. Wow. All right. Any other announcements? We have a Fat Sunday announcement, Joe?
It's coming up in 3 weeks, I believe. So our menu's almost filled. Could just use some help with the setup yet, but looking good.
All right.
The band's gonna curse it, I think.
Here is my servant whom I uphold, my chosen in whom my soul delights. I have put my spirit upon him. He will bring forth justice to the nations. He will not cry or lift up his voice, or make it heard in the street. A bruised reed he will not break, and a dimly burning wick he will not quench. He will faithfully bring forth justice. He will not grow faint or be crushed until he has established justice in the earth, and the coastlands wait for his teaching. Thus says God the Lord, who created the heavens and stretched them out, who spread out the earth and what comes from it, who gives breath to the people upon it, and spirit to those who walk on it. I am the Lord, I have called you in righteousness. I have taken you by the hand and kept you. I have given you as a covenant to the people, a light to the nations, to open the eyes that are blind, to bring out the prisoners from the dungeon, from the prison those who sit in darkness. I am the Lord, that is my name. My glory I give no other, nor my praise to idols. See, the former things I have come to pass, and new things I now declare. Before spring forth, I tell you of them. The word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
The Holy Gospel according to Matthew.
Glory to you, Lord.
Now when Jesus came to the district of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, "Who do people say that the Son of Man is?" And they said, "Some say John the Baptist, others Elijah, still others Jeremiah or one of the prophets." He said to them, "But who do you say that I am?" Simon Peter answered, "You are the Messiah, Son of the living God." And Jesus answered him, "Blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah, for flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, but my Father in heaven. And I tell you, you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not prevail against it. I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven. Whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven." Then he sternly ordered his disciples not to tell anyone that he was the Messiah. From that time on, Jesus began to show his disciples that he must go to Jerusalem and undergo great suffering at the hands of the elders and the chief priests and the scribes, and be killed, and on the third day be raised. And Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him, saying, "God forbid it, Lord, this must never happen to you." But he turned and said to Peter, "Get behind me, Satan. You are a stumbling block to me, for you are setting your mind not on divine things, but on human things." Then Jesus told his disciples, "If any want to become my followers, let them deny themselves, take up their cross, and follow me. For those who want to save their life will lose it, and those who lose their life for my sake will find it. For what will it profit them if they gain the whole world but forfeit their life? Or what will they give in return for their life? For the Son of Man is to come with his angels in the glory of his Father, and then he will repay everyone for what he has done. Truly I tell you, there are some standing here who will not taste death before they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom." The Gospel of our Lord.
Praise to you, Lord.
So Jesus takes his disciples on a bit of a field trip. Most of the Gospels record Jesus in and around Capernaum, this little triangle on the Sea of Galilee. And for whatever reason, he takes them up to a place called Caesarea Philippi. This was a brand new city, and it was on top of these rock cliffs overlooking the Sea of Galilee. And it was a resort town. It was a town meant for people to come and enjoy themselves. And whatever that might mean to you, do you at Caesarea Philippi. They had a saying at Caesarea Philippi, what happens at Caesarea Philippi stays at Caesarea Philippi. The name Caesarea is after Caesar, and Philippi was after Philip, who was King Herod's son, Herod Philip, who was given this area. And he decided he wanted to build a city to honor Caesar and himself. And it was something. It was built on the site where before that there was the worship of the god Baal. And then after that, when the Greeks took over, it was worshiping the god Pan. And the spot where the cliff meets the water, there is a natural spring that flows right out of these rock cliffs. And that was called the Gates of Hades. And they believed when they were worshiping the god Pan that the fertility gods lived in Hades, which was a sort of other world. And in the spring, when what we would know as the runoff causes the spring to flow outward fast, the fertility gods would ride those waters out into the world, and that's why we started having all kinds of animal babies and people babies in the spring. That's kind of their explanation. So when Jesus is referring to the gates of Hades here, he's talking about this area he was standing in front of, and all of the mythology of this place and this city. I think Jesus was doing something really significant here. I think he took his disciples to see Caesarea Philippi. And what they would have noticed is there are lots of wealthy people here spending a lot of money, but there are also a lot of oppressed people here being used. Jesus came and he asked the question, who do people say that the Son of Man is? Anybody know who the Son of Man was, where it comes from? The book of Daniel. You are right. Daniel talks about all of these mythical monsters that come one after the next, and the one overturns the last one, and then a bigger one comes. And it was all the great empires of the world, people think. And then finally, one like the Son of Man, like a child, comes and leads them. Not a fierce fighting machine, but a peace-loving child. And in that day, the lion will lie down with the lamb. Is this jogging your memory? You got this? So Jesus asked his disciples, who do they say the Son of Man is? And they say, well, John the Baptist, maybe Elijah or Jeremiah, one of the prophets. And then he turns the question, and he says, and who do you say that I am? And Peter jumps at the opportunity to stand up and proclaim, you are the Messiah, which means deliverer, Son of the living God. And Jesus says, the only way you would know that is because it, not from flesh and blood, but because it was given to you by Father God. I imagine all the disciples looking at Peter going, way to go. Nice job. And then Jesus says, on this rock, my church will be built. I always thought that because he changed Simon, son of Jonah, into Peter, which means literally rock, that he was talking about he was going to build his church on Peter. And maybe he was. I think that's a good possibility. But what if Jesus was saying, on this rock, like the big rock they were standing in front of, he was going to build his church? What are the implications of that? Maybe Jesus was out there trying to teach his disciples. Most of the time, religion becomes this collection of us. And we get together and we make sure that we take care of us. And us is all about who it is for. And the church is about us. And to bring significance to the us, we're going to play this little game where you have to be perfect. And so each week you can come and you can renew your desire to be perfect with the rest of us. And then also we will look down at everyone else, but them, right? And we will be like, we're not them. That's what religion so often devolves into. But what if Jesus is saying, actually, in front of this rock that symbolizes Sin City, that actually the church is not a health club or a country club for saints, but a hospital for sinners? What if he is saying, on this rock, this Caesarea Philippi rock of sin and debauchery, this is my church? That makes me uncomfortable. Does it make you uncomfortable? I kind of like this one over here, where we all talk about how great everything is. I think Jesus was saying, my church is going to be different. And he proved it with his life. Everywhere he went, they kept saying, why are you hanging out with tax collectors and sinners? He had a different idea about what this church is. And what it is it looks outward, not inward. Something we often miss. That would be the end of Sermon 1. Sermon 2. This isn't actually a sermon, but last week I got up here and I gave a sermon. And in my sermon I said, I do not believe in hell. And that apparently caused quite a stir, which I am so happy. I wish all my sermons caused quite a stir. Someone said, well, Pastor, in the Apostles' Creed, we say on the third day, or Jesus descended into hell, and on the third day he was raised. We've all said it hundreds of times if we've said it once. Well, the Apostles' Creed was not put together until the 4th century. It was after the Christian church was part and parcel of the Roman Empire. So for the first 300 or so years, Christians were persecuted by the Romans. They had to meet in catacombs and in people's homes, and the role of being a Christian was not being discovered and then spreading the word. In about 350, Constantine decided, partly because his own mother became a Christian, that he was going to make Christianity the official religion of the empire. And all of a sudden, the Pope and the Emperor were best friends. And the church went from being we'll say a hospital for sinners, to clearly being a health club for saints. One of the things that happened was Constantine said anybody who becomes a Christian doesn't have to work on Sunday, because the Christians believe in a Sabbath day. Who would sign up for that, you ask? Everyone. And so in the city of Rome, they went from about 300 Christians worshiping on the lowdown in people's homes to 3,000 Christians trying to figure out what it means to worship God. The only example they had of that kind of worship was emperor worship. And so the worship service that we have in our churches today looks far more like emperor worship than it looks like what the early church did. I've made my peace with that. I actually kind of like it. This is a fancy little robe I get to wear. But that's not the heart of the church. Now, as for descended into hell, that part of the Apostles' Creed was not written originally in the 4th century when the Creed was written. There were two statements that did not appear in manuscripts until the 8th century. One is the communion of saints, and the other is the descended into hell. What was going on in the 8th century that caused them to rewrite the Apostles' Creed? That was the Middle Ages. We would call it medieval. Have you ever been to medieval times near Kenosha? You gone for dinner there? Anyone? No? Well, there was a 3-tiered social strata at that time. There was the king, there were vassal lords, and there were serfs. There was one king, there might be a dozen vassal lords, and there might be 100,000 serfs. The king ruled by divine right or divine power. He was God's representative on earth, so he said. And people believed it. The vassal lords were sort of his way of governing. And the way they governed was, if anyone was disobedient to the law of the land, it was like being disobedient to the king, and they would be put to death publicly to show everyone what happens to you in this feudal economy if you disobey. The number one thing to have a long life as a serf was to do your job and don't ask questions. It was imperative that anybody who did something contrary to the law, contrary to obeying, would be punished publicly to set the example. And in an economy where, as a serf, what you believe about the vassal lord is that they serve the king and the king serves God, it is like God punishing you. And unfortunately, our church, the Catholic Church, I say our church because it was the only church, and they are our spiritual ancestors, they thought it was way more important to keep people in line than to care about the oppressed people. We don't use the Apostles' Creed here very often. Partly because after I read a book on how the Apostles' Creed was arranged and who it was arranged by, I don't have the stomach to say most of those things. There's a book on the creeds, the constructing the creeds, in the opening paragraph says this: if you ever heard the adage about how sausage is made and not wanting to eat it, do not read this book. The people who created the Apostles in the Nicene Creed were bishops And they were not concerned at all with the oppression of people. They were merely concerned at keeping the status of the country club. It was a creed that was developed so that everyone who was baptized would be baptized into the club. There are some nice things in the Apostles' Creed. Some things I don't have the stomach to say. But here's the important thing to remember. I'm just a person. I don't know if there is a hell. I haven't been there. I don't know what happens when you die. Just like when Peter said, "You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God." And Jesus said, the only way you can come by this is through the Spirit moving in your life, through God. That's what I claim how I know this. I know what is worth giving my life to. And giving my life to a system of keeping people in line is just not worth it. But as a pastor, giving my life to creating a church of people who are collecting soup and diapers so that people who don't have them, people who find themselves at the bottom, can have them, and with no cost. That's the kind of world, the church that I want to live with. And the Spirit of Peace Creed is the kind of creed that I say, because I mean every word of it. We'll probably use the other creeds because I'm only just the pastor here. And we've always said them, so there's something to be said about that. I feel God calling us to go to Caesarea Philippi, to be about building the church in a way that is looking outward, not just inward. Looking forward, not just backward. And a church that glorifies